Hello and welcome back to Invincible Asia. I'm George Clark and this is another episode of Untold Stories where today I get the chance to talk with the wonderful Arne Venema.
Here's the very weird thing. We're in the middle of selling our house, right?
Oh, all right.
And
Go ahead.
the latest viewers have just arrived half an hour early. So
Okay.
I'm going to shift spots. So
Go ahead. Yeah, we can talk about we can continue talking about Ebola syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
I have the most interesting interview on your channel now. Yeah.
So yes, Arne, finally nice to meet you, as I say. An absolute pleasure. If there's one man that I am really jealous of at the moment on this planet, it is yourself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the commentary thing is it's really taken off for you, hasn't it? It's been fantastic.
Yeah, we've done like over 100 of them now. Well, definitely a while ago. We don't know how many we've done. And it was really funny because I was having a conversation with Mike the other day.
Yeah.
And we were like, someone asked us about a commentary and asked us some details about it. And they're like, oh, could you guys list the commentaries you've done in a list and give some details about each commentary? We're just like, I hate to break this to you, but sometimes if you've done this many, I can't really always remember what I've all spoken about.
Of course.
Just don't.
Yeah.
So it all becomes
losing
films, like when we're doing a lot of the kung fu films. Oh, is everything okay?
Yeah, back again.
Okay, cool. Even some films when we were doing all the kung fu films, like stuff started to kind of blend together. So in a weird way, the movies have been jumbled in my head as well, which is really strange. So because we did 4 audio commentaries in 1 week once, and it was a bit mental. So it's but
so in your head, it becomes a Godfrey Ho cut and paste movie.
It kind of does, yeah. Especially since a lot of the actors blend over with one another. And I saw these movies when I was growing up, and it's this weird thing where they just kind of some of them started blending together. But yeah, we've done a lot of them, and we're starting to do American films more and Japanese films and stuff.
Yeah, I've seen
that's
that.
really exciting.
Very good. So of course that now it's spread over many different labels. That's the thing. It's the two of you have shifted on, so to speak, from Idiot Films into Eureka and others now that I'm seeing you do posting on your Instagram of certain, as you say, American titles in Japanese. So
yes,
it's pretty cool to see, and it does spread that. And I have heard you talk about often how your family have moved around Asia quite a bit when you were growing up. And have you always then had a love for Asian movies as such?
Okay, so this gets good. That's actually a very good question. So I grew up in about 9 different countries, and every summer we would go back to Bangkok. My brother is also born in Japan. My brother Keigo, shout out to that. I just got back from Japan like a week ago as well. I'll be going a lot more to both Japan and Thailand, both for just personal reasons and to shoot and whatever. So as we were traveling around so much when I was younger, we go back to Thailand every summer. So my dad, for example, was more the Western influence. So my mom was born and raised in Thailand. My dad would show me things like, this is James Bond, this is Sean Connery, he'd shoot people with spear guns and goes, I hope he gets the points and stuff like that. And my mom was like, yeah, that's cool. Check these out, and they'd be like, Jackie Chan and on the insane Thai movies as well. And Nangpi in Thailand, which are ghost films, which I'm really into the ghost and horror cinema stuff, which I think I sometimes think like there's a lot of people are really into action and stuff, but I really love Asian horror cinema, and there isn't very much of that, on my opinion, that's been shown yet. I think a lot of the labels, especially Era 4444, who we're now starting to work with as well, they're really starting to get that and dig into that. And obviously Eureka have done some stuff.
Yeah.
But have I always been Asian films? Yeah, my dad was giving me Western films, and mom was giving me Asian films.
Good.
And you blend the two. So So
always from childhood you've really been watching these, really, then, since.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. It was a big influence. And like when I was living in South Africa, like especially in like the late 80s, a lot of Jackie Chan stuff started coming through. A lot of more obscure Hong Kong stuff started getting through. And then the early 90s as well. I mean, we just did all the a while ago we did with Eureka, we did things like Yes Madam and everything else, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing those when they're first coming out. I don't know under which title those. Having this conversation with Mike Leader, because I don't think they were called that in South Africa. But in South Africa, in all honesty, they could have been called anything. And the same thing in Thailand. You know,
it is a series of many titles, right? I mean, it has had so many, even English titles. It's had so many.
Yeah, chronologically confused as well, which makes it a lot more fun. You know,
Absolutely,
it's like which one they supposedly came first. I don't fucking know. It's almost it's like Star Wars, kind of, really. You know what I'm saying? Like with Star Wars, if you show a new generation, go, here's all these episodes. Oh, watch them in order. Don't you fucking dare do that.
Total confusion right there. So from your childhood, and you were talking about obscure movies there coming out in South Africa when you lived there. Is there any that spring to mind, title-wise, that would be more obscure?
Oh, like, you know, there's it's really fun because even before we get into stuff in South Africa, we've got to go back to Japan. Because growing up, I was born in 1981, so I moved to Japan when I was 2. Mm-hmm. Before I went to South Africa, even before we get in the movies, we got to get into like you know, all the tonkatsu, like the people who dressed up as
Japanese superhero, and
And I was big when I was a kid into 2 things. I was huge into Diaclone, which later became Transformers.
Oh yes.
And then so I was there in 1982, and I later on like, you know, that became that. But I was very big into a show called Change-A-Man. And Change-A-Man was later taken to the West along with a couple other shows, and that became Power Rangers. So that was actually the first real influence there.
Wow, okay.
And I saw a whole bunch of Japanese films, and like those kind of films, which have like an imprint in my brain, but I don't know what all of them are called. So because I was just too young, and they were kind of aimed at audience. But again, I think the reason I'm into genre cinema is because the Japanese tolerance for what they showed younger people in terms of like action and violence and everything was way higher in the 80s than what they did in like the West.
The kids get it far too easy nowadays. They really do.
Yeah, I know. I think we should, if we showed some of the younger kids some of the stuff we were watching, they'd just be like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, absolutely.
But later on, when I went to South Africa, obviously we got the Jackie Chan stuff, and I like to say I'm a big fan of the Jackie Chan stuff, but I'm always a proponent of seeing stuff that is more obscure. Mm-hmm. And there's a film that I love that I would love to see come out called Kung Fu Zombie. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Yes, exactly, yes.
What a great
I love that. I don't know. Look, and that's one of the films, like every now and again we have people come up to us and go, I do this thing sometimes which people don't know about, where because Mike and I know some of the people that do the actual film scanning, go, what do you have in the archives? And sometimes you pick their brains. And I've asked about Kung Fu Zombie, and they're like, bit of an obscure one, but we'll let you know if there's anything. So I'm always after that. I wish someone would put out Beast Cops as well, because I saw that but that was after South Africa. I saw that like later on, because that's a 1998
was it later?
But no, that was one. There's a lot of stuff, man. Like it's kind of hard to put my finger on, but I love that like the more obscure stuff, like Kung Fu Zombie, Kung Fu Beyond the Grave. I saw that as well. But like all that kind of stuff had a big impression on me, and I think my parents let me watch it because it's so fucking silly. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
that's the thing. Like, I was brought up on that too. I kind of feared myself into that, and I think what attracted me as a kid was the illustrated Jackie Chan covers on the VHSs, you know, the beautifully drawn ones. And when I was 5 or 6, I didn't know that these were movies. I thought they were cartoons, and I would like ask my parents to hire me them out, and it got me hooked.
Yeah.
It absolutely got me hooked.
Yeah, no, and going back to what I'm seeing in Japan, you know, we see that kind of stuff as well. The way, I mean, those kind of movies like Change-A-Man and stuff like that. Yeah. That very much was like if you look at those things, they're borderline between a cartoon and a live action thing anyway.
Sure.
I mean, it's anime emotion or manga emotion, as you want to say, which I think was a term they later used in England as well.
Yes, that's right. It was actually,
and so I literally just remember that. But it's kind of stuff like that, and I don't. It's weird because a lot of the stuff that I was seeing, the titles weren't correct, and they're kind of blending into a big blender in my head. And I gotta admit, we've had situations where, like, say, Blu-ray labels are, okay, you review this film. I go, I've never heard of that. And when I watch it, I go, well, I have seen this. But it was under such a bizarre title, because you gotta remember, in Africa, when they put stuff out, IFD stuff, totally saw that.
Yeah.
Like in Africa, when they put stuff out, the titles and the covers were nowhere near what you see. You know what I'm saying?
Imagine.
I mean, even in the video stores. So it's kind of a weird question, but of course the IFD stuff. And it was super bizarre when years
really
later I went to film school in Hong Kong, and then I go, oh, what are the lectures going to be? And in walks this guy. I'm like,
you know him?
Fucking, and he goes, oh, let me show you some of the movies I made. Here's like, you know, Ninja Terminator and stuff. I go, this is fucking Godfrey Ho.
That's incredible, though. I mean,
yeah.
To me, the guy is a legend. Absolutely.
Yeah. I can't say what we did, but we just shot something with Godfrey last week.
Brilliant.
So, but I can't say for which label. It's a newer label we haven't worked with before. There's about 4 labels that we're new labels we're working for that no one really knows about yet. But I'm anxious for them. Eventually they'll come out, but I can't say who they are.
Okay.
For one of them we shot something with Godfrey, and the interview he gave with us, he's animated, because I know Godfrey quite well because he became my teacher, but somehow we became friends. He came to my wedding. My dad knows him. I think I've told the story before. They've done drinks together and everything else, and they're the same age as well. So Godfrey would be like, they're like, he asked my dad, well, what? My dad worked at pharmaceuticals. What were you doing in 1988? My dad was like, oh, I think we're working on a drug to, like, you know, help with X, Y, and Z. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, shooting ninjas in the park over there. And it's like, okay. And they met at my wedding again. And my dad's like, oh yeah, I remember you. And they started talking. And when I saw Godfrey again, he's like, oh, how's your dad? I go, oh, he's great. He goes, oh, good. I have a proxy communication device with him now.
What an incredible relationship to have with someone like that, though. Because when you've grown up watching his movies, and yes, as you say, they never made any sense when you were younger, but now I'm spending a fortune getting German media books of IFD films because they mean so much to me now. You know, there's so much importance, I think, in his filmography, and it's a guy that has, for the most part, had a bad rap because of the cut and paste stuff. But I think he's still an incredible filmmaker and has done some wonderful action movies.
He is an exceptional filmmaker, but you got to remember, like, beyond the cut and paste stuff, Godfrey made things like Angel Enforcers.
Love it.
And like those are full films. So the first audio commentary I ever did was for Lethal Panther, and that actually was with Mike Leader and Godfrey Ho. So somehow he's been very instrumental in me, like doing audio commentaries. And that audio commentary for Lethal Panther was wild, and he was so much fire.
Absolutely loved it. It was one of my most entertaining, or one of the most entertaining audio commentaries I've heard on any Hong Kong film.
Yeah, he's wild. And that was the first one we did, and he's on fire. But we recently shot an interview with him where he revealed something to me and to Mike Leader, where we both were like, "Wait, what?"
Oh, really?
A very interesting historical fact in Hong Kong cinema that we never knew about. I don't think anybody knew about it. And he casually mentioned it. And we're like, excuse me? Is that true? And he goes, yeah. How else did it happen? And we go like, wait, that was you? And he goes, yeah.
Wow. Like, okay. Now I'm excited.
So he was instrumental. Let me just say, all I can say is Godfrey was instrumental in the development of something in Hong Kong cinema that is well known all over the world. And he was the man that set that in motion. So I think in about, before the end of the year, something will come out that will reveal that bit of interview. But I was stunned, and it kind of goes back to something else that we did a documentary on before.
Sure. Okay. No, I'm excited now. You've got me.
Yeah. And he's super animated during the interview, and I was interviewing him, and it was so much fun. And Godfrey loves movies, and I can tell. I don't know if I can say this. Maybe I can. Godfrey's thinking about doing another movie.
I'm gonna ask that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's gonna go, and he's got some stuff will come out pretty soon. But yeah, there's gonna be we're gonna be announcing a little something, I think, at some point. So that's a little exclusive for you. So
that is fantastic. I mean, I do adore the guy. I think he is phenomenal, and it is a name who's, I would say, quite a majority of my extensive collection. His name is there quite a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, amazing. So in terms of, okay, so you've done your audio commentaries, and of course you make film yourself. You shoot a lot of stuff now. The extra features I'm watching from you, have been so entertaining. Your locations,
Thank you.
revisits, and other.
Yeah.
Is it nice? Is it a nice feeling to go to these places that you recognize or don't recognize? Such.
All right, so I'm going to answer that in a very good way, in a two-part way.
Yeah.
One, it is awesome. It's okay. There's three parts to which are two doing location video. One, obviously, you watch the movie and you get to play detective, right?
Yeah,
and
of course.
there's something of a eureka because you ask people around, and there's always this mist because these films are made in the 80s and 90s. So you've got this like mist and fog, and somebody say, "It was shot there" or "shot there." Now, for something like Yes, Madam, a lot of those locations are kind of easy to find.
Yeah.
But there's some other films that we've done, especially one we've done for a certain company that'll come out very soon, and I think that location videos are best.
Okay.
Because it was researched by myself and a fellow CFK member, because CFK is basically the production company I have.
Yes, that's right.
And
yeah.
One of our members is Mike Chan, and he particular, I got to give him credit on that one. For the specific film that we did, which is a Category 3 film that's going to get released by one of the labels we work with, to find those locations was literally like, okay, send us the print. We are going to look at every single brick and mortar in the background of the frame to figure out where the stuff is. Yeah. And we found some stuff in that film that no one from the so we had 3 different people from the production going, oh, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there, it's there. We're like, well, you can't all be right, because and then there's something we discovered about the film's locations and everything else that was really complicated. So my basic story is the detective aspect of it is fun. Because it's almost like solving a murder mystery. It's a game to us.
Of course.
That part's fun. Then going out to shoot it can be a fucking nightmare sometimes. Seriously, the She Shoots Straight one that we did coming out, it was 38 degrees outside, and we're shooting that video.
Jesus.
And we shot over a period of 2 days because cameras are overheating, because we shoot on we've good gear, we've got great Canon cinema cameras and everything else. Sure. But even Canon cinema, and we've got things like the Atoma's Ninja, and the Atoma's Ninjas are fantastic because we have to record on ProRes 422 for a Blu-ray release. And you know about this stuff. I know stuff too. And basically, an Atoma's Ninja at 38 degrees with 98% humidity shits itself.
I'm sure.
So that was a bit of a nightmare, and it was so hot. So basically, a bit of secret on all these location videos. When you see me wearing the clothes, I have 2 pairs of the t-shirts, for example. There's 2 t-shirts. There's 3 t-shirts. There's 1 t-shirt I wear in between takes, and there's 2 t-shirts I switch out because eventually one gets so sweated through at times that you have to wear another one, and that's the kind of thing you learn. So Ebola Syndrome.
That particular edition on the She Shoots Straight, Eureka had sent me a screener disc, and I was able to check that out, and it was fantastic to see. And there's quite a number of changes in particular for that one. I remember, especially where the final fight was between.
Did you? Yeah. So when that comes out, that was so. Can you imagine what it was like finding that location? So we.
Right.
So for that one, we tracked it by the mountains in the background. But so there's a where the final fight, there's a rock quarry, and we have to track from the mountains in the back. This doesn't match up. Turns out the mountains in the background have changed too. So we have to fucking compare and contrast. Eventually, we're like, okay, judging by where it is and from the information we get from people, again, it's not like someone goes, oh yeah, it's right over there.
Yeah,
no, multiple different sources.
Yeah.
No, there's no GPS. So there's multiple people giving you information where it is, mostly 3 different contracting stories. But eventually we kind of found it, and that was crazy. But that out of and when we got there, there's always the criteria I go by to go, is this worth showing? Because sometimes there's some locations that you go, okay, this is so different. Yeah. There's no point.
It's unrecognizable.
But in that situation, we decided to show it because I felt that if you really want to show how much Hong Kong has changed, and that was such a shocking one,
absolutely,
that I felt that was interesting, and the contrast is so hardcore.
Oh, totally.
That you're like.
I was shocked. I was shocked as much as you were in the video. I was shocked.
Yeah.
How different that looked, and how you find it is just incredible. Yeah.
Now it's always the trick. The trick usually is. Other than asking the crew, is you compare and contrast backgrounds. That's a huge trick to it. Mm-hmm. And the bird, I'm particularly happy with the bird market shot we got in that.
Yeah.
Because that that bird market shot was so hot.
Yeah.
I am burning there. And then I think if you've seen it, there's a little bit of Hong Kong technology that I have to give a shout out to our man Matt Blaze, because you see a little bit of Hong Kong technology in one of the areas go by, a little robot.
Yeah.
And that shot is an effect shot. The robot is all there, that's all real.
Yeah.
But a woman ran by me through the shot and was staring at me on the left side. And our effects guy, in-house effects guy, Matt Blaze, digitally removed her frame by frame.
Wow. My goodness.
So, and then, yeah. So that was.
Where was he in the 80s and 90s when thousands of people were watching Chow Yun-fat shooting people in a street, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's something, of course, it's quite common there, right? When even still today, when people are out with a camera, you do get a lot of watchers, right?
So yeah, we have people sometimes when we're doing those things. I want to, at some point, I think I'll release an outtake of all the location videos we've done, because we have some weird ones where I'm standing there talking and all of a sudden some woman goes, tries to ask me for directions and stuff. I go, I'm fucking posting. or people coming up and going, oh, and they start just looking the camera at you. Stuff like that's happened. There's a really fun one where I was on Shishu State, I was shooting Mike Leader, and this huge truck just came next to him and started like just going like honking really hard. It's just really weird stuff happens during those things. But yeah, so, and to edit them is tons of fun, because you see your work come together. And I think the trick for me with that always that I'm really concerned about is geography, right? Because you've got to sometimes you've got to really think like, how can I best demonstrate that this was an actual location?
Of course.
And this is where it was. So I mean, you have to really think about your I mean, those location videos are, the easy part is standing in front of the camera, and you know, I've got a decent memory, so you can memorize the stuff and put it out there in a concise way, and I'll slot your words again and stuff. But I think the big trick to them is getting your cutaway shots and going, okay, this is this, and so that the audience at home almost feels like, you know, they're there in a way.
Yeah. Well, I know when I visited Hong Kong just before the pandemic broke out, I was kind of like, it was only Mike revealed that in front of our hotel at the Royal Garden was the alleyway in Heart of the Dragon where the car jumps. And
yes.
It was great to know, but I was kind of like out there searching for things that I recognize. And of course, there's so much to take in. You could practically walk down any street and something has been shot there, you know, but you've just really got to pinpoint what that is.
I gotta say that the biggest location seems that I found that, because sometimes I've discovered, like, by doing these things, there's some locations you end up going to over and over and over again, and especially in the 80s and 90s, like so many films shot in Kimberley Road and such. Like, I mean, everything from Ebola Syndrome to Yes Madam and stuff like that. Like it's insane. So there's some locations you find, but there's the one that we did recently, which I think is our best one. We end up traveling to deep in the new territories, and I'm talking the jungle, to find a location there. And at one point, I'll tell you what happened there. At one point, we're sitting there, and we're like, okay, I think this location, oh my God, we found it, that's great. And as I said that, some creature, a lizard came by, and a bigger lizard ate that lizard, and and then a bird came and ate that lizard as well. And I was like, we're in the fucking jungle now, man. And it wasn't like a pigeon-sized bird, it was a big bird. And I go,
but no snake.
We're finishing this. No, well, that's the thing. So in the documentary, or in the location video, at one point, like, one of our crew goes, because everybody knows I have a phobia for snakes. I have a genuine phobia for snakes. And one of our crew goes, "Hey, Arne, we should as a maybe go there." He goes, "No, I don't think we should go in there." Later on, he goes, "Yeah, there's a fucking massive snake in there." Like, it's the jungle. Like, I'm like, "Oh, great, guys," because they know. They go, "Okay, do not tell Arne that's in there, because if he finds out, he's getting the first cab out of here, man."
Absolutely. So, I'm not a fan of them myself. And when myself and my husband were up walking around Victoria Peak, I kind of reminded them that they could be there. He started walking quite a bit faster. But
your husband's a wise man.
Exactly. Mind you, we walked into quite a large wild boar, and both of us then started running as fast as we possibly could. But that was a good experience.
I have a fun story about a wild boar, not really connected to Blu-rays, but obviously I have a music background. So we did before the pandemic, we did these, there's an area called Psycho. My leader actually lives around Psycho.
Yes.
And he's confessed there's snakes and stuff like that. And at one point they were doing these acid house house parties, like, you know, in England and in Ireland. I'm sure you had acid house back in the 80s, and that. Yep, and then I make acid house, so we bring all the equipment out, the drum machines, samplers, and we're on our way to this, like, I wouldn't say legal party, but hidden party in the hills of Saikung, which is kind of a jungle area as well. And they've cleared this area out, and you have to get there. And they had a car taking us there, so we got all this equipment in the car, and also the car slams on the brakes in the middle, and I go, "What is it?" It goes, "There are two like giant like wild boars in front of the car," and they're staring at the car, and but they were like, "Are we going to take on this car?" Like, I was like, we're in the jungle now.
Yeah, I couldn't get over the size of it.
They're not small, and if you get attacked by something like that, and every now and again one gets into the city in Hong Kong, you know. Like they've walked into the MTR and the metro here. They've walked. I was on a minibus once, and one tried to get on, and I was like, "This thing only has one exit." Like,
so it's never a dull day in Hong Kong, basically.
Hong Kong is interesting because look, this is one of the most technologically advanced cities in the world. I mean, we've got a fantastic infrastructure. Our internet is lightning fast. Things are updated very quickly. People love tech and everything else. Sometimes a little too much because they get the newest thing, you know, always, and they're always updating things. And Hong Kong's easy to update as well because we got no import tax and everything else. Yeah. And every now and again, a monkey or like a freaking like wild boar makes in the city and goes, there's jungle around here. You know, you don't see it all the time, but there's a freaking ton of jungle around here. So we also recently did a video for just one last story.
Yeah.
Just to continue on that subject, I sent you some pictures. I don't know if you got them.
Got them.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we did a video about Jimmy Wong Yu and for Beach of the War Gods, and we were supposed to shoot in a different location, but that didn't work out. So I was like, "What can we do?" I go, "Hey, how about why don't we just sit on the beach, dude? Beach of the War Gods makes sense." So, and one of the reasons we did that was to show Hong Kong isn't all glass and concrete. You know, we've got beautiful beaches.
Yeah. We saw some incredible scenery for the short time we were there, but it's just absolutely stunning. Beach of the War Gods, I mean, probably in my top 5 Jimmy Wang Yu movies. Incredible film. I really adore it. I've got about 3 different versions of it so far. And then, of course, Eureka releases it. That'll be another.
Well, I could tell you that, I don't know if you got a screener for that yet, but I could tell you the Eureka print looks so good.
Good.
I was, hands off to Jacob and all the people there. Like, it looks phenomenal. I was like, wow, this looks like a really great print.
But seeing a movie that old as clean and restored as that blows me away, because it makes you feel that you're watching it again for the first time.
Yeah, sure. And also I appreciate the because when Blu-rays first came out, sometimes you had films being restored and it was too clean. The digital like denoising would be too high. And I think we were at the point where a lot of these companies like, you know, Eureka, Air 444, whatever, they've really managed to figure out how to clean up these images, but keep the grain and the organic textures in there. And that I have to appreciate. And yeah, Beach of the War Gods looks fantastic that way. And I'd like to go out and say, I love Jimmy Wong Yu, and if you were to, and I'm gonna maybe make some people grimace right now and go, but you know what? If I had my choice over 4 Bruce Lee films and 4 Jimmy Wong Yu films, I'd go for the Jimmy Wong Yu films.
I'm with you all the way, 100%.
I think he's mad. I think he's creative. Come on, One-Armed Boxer, Master of the Flying Guillotine, my old time. Oh, that's a film I saw in South Africa, by the way. Master of the Flying Guillotine, one of the first kung fu films I ever saw. And I go, this is the most awesome thing ever. Like, it's just so mad. Yeah. And then I saw the Jimmy Wong Yu stuff when I was younger, maybe before I saw the Bruce Lee stuff as well, to be honest.
Yeah, so, I would say that Jimmy Wong Yu movies were definitely an earlier, basically not an introduction to Hong Kong cinema. Jackie Chan movies were for sure, but there was definitely a lot of Jimmy Wong Yu movies that were about much easier than a lot of other stuff to pick up, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of it in South Africa. And I love how creative and mental some of his films are. They're like they're kind of closer to like what those Japanese like TV shows and movies were like.
Yeah,
and it was based in Taiwan, so
yeah, I feel there's quite a lot of Japanese influence on his earlier stuff as well. I feel that there's
Beach of the War Gods, right? Akira Kurosawa.
It's an incredible movie. I cannot wait to see this restored version. I think it's going to knock the socks off. Beautiful.
That and the print for Fatal Termination also like the Airport 4.
Oh, I got my pre-order in ages ago. I cannot wait.
And that's really good.
There actually has been, and I'll probably continue this when we get into the next video here, but I think there's been a severe lack of Girls with Guns movies or femme fatale movies from UK labels as such so far.
Yeah. I'd like to see them from other countries as well, because Thailand and like Japan did them as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they all have their own spin on it. And there's a film I've been parading for people to put out. There's I think I keep mispronouncing it. I think it's Female Battle Cop or something like that. There's a Japanese RoboCop film with a woman who's a tennis player, gets killed by terrorists, and comes back as a RoboCop and hunts down the terrorists. It's a V cinema film.
Even the synopsis is amazing.
That is I think it's called Lady Battle Cop. I have to look up. But anyhow, but it's completely bonkers, and I love that stuff, and I'd love to see more of that. But I think eventually we're going to get there. I'm actually really excited because I think more and more labels are starting to get into the more experimental, fun stuff right now.
Yes, which is what we need. I think we definitely need that for sure. Yeah,
I think we do. I think we do. And look, there's something else to it for me personally, and this might be a bit weird for some people to kind of understand, but I think by showing them more interesting and intricate films like that, which a little more grindhousey stuff, whatever, I think the ultimate experience for people who not just watch movies but want to make movies, I think that's super important.
Yeah.
To see like how these more left field films are made, and and that could inspire the next Edgar Wright or Sam Raimi or whatever else, because those guys were inspired by that kind of stuff.
Well, that's why I wanted to get into it, because I've been watching these kind of movies from I was like 5 or 6 years of age, and it's just everything I've ever wanted to do. And I'm raging. I say this to Mike all the time. I'm raging I didn't go out to Hong Kong when I was of age. To be able to do that. I kind of don't know what. I really don't know what delayed me, but it's a bit of a kick in the arse for me now to sort of see what chances could have been out there, but. You know what?
Yeah, but like with things like that, I mean, everything's easy to do in hindsight. You know what I'm saying? Like, in hindsight, like I wish I'd skateboarded more. Like, it's like I tried it recently and it didn't go too well. Talking about difficult shoots, but like I wish I'd done a better job at learning that. But like,
it is. I mean, I'm still doing it. I'm still making my movies. That's the thing. It's not like
I thought you meant skateboarding.
I didn't go there. Well, not like skateboarding. I tried that just once.
Oh yeah, I used to do it a lot more, but apparently when you're like a little later on in life, at 4 a.m. and like in a Tiger costume, it's not a good idea.
4 a.m.
But like, that's how I wrote.
That's because you know what's going to happen to you. That's how it gets harder.
Maybe that's but about making the movies. Yeah, look, Ridley Scott was 41 when he made his when he first got into filmmaking and stuff like that. Wow. Yeah, because he did commercials and stuff like that before. I mean, he did the Duelists. I think he was 40, 41. He made Alien quite late in life. If you look at it.
Yeah.
So it's it's never too late to become a filmmaker, and everybody has a story to tell. And even if you made stuff before. Like, just keep making stuff, because one day you're gonna be dead, and that's all that's left to remember you.
Very true.
So that's how I look at it. So that's why I personally make so much stuff. Like,
absolutely.
But it's I think that's an important idea. If you want to reach immortality, just do it through your work. I don't know.
I always say that this is quite possibly a cursive film, that we watch these movies. Say Jackie's, for example, his greatest, and we still imagine that this is the guy from Dragons Forever that we know today, and it's not. And then people complain.
No.
His movies now, and they're like, "Oh, it's not Jackie from Project A or Armor of God." Of course, it's really not.
Yeah, you tried doing that at Jackie's age. Yeah, go jump off a fucking balcony. You go ahead. So
I have a thing. It is a curse in so much that it's just capturing them in time. And we love these movies for a reason, and we rewatch them so much. But we have to remember when they were made. And when these restored movies are coming out to us, and you realize, hang on, this is actually 40 years of age or 30 years of age, it's surprising.
But but the amount that these films give to, like, I almost see it as like a liquid giant gelatin thing called culture, and that and everybody can give something to that, whether or not it's like a really cool Picasso like painting, or whether or not it's like an Aphex Twin record, or whether or not it's like the Jackie Chan film you mentioned right there. like if you can give something to that humanitarian creative cultural gelatin,
absolutely,
then that's like, or let's call it ether. That sounds better.
Yeah.
The creative ether. If you can give something to that and give it to a huge extent, not only does it entertain people, but you're building on stuff. You're giving people the tools to build on for that as well. I think that's super important. And like for someone like Jackie, you can complain, oh yeah, he doesn't do the same things. Well, first of all, he's not immortal, and like his bones have broken to the extent that he shouldn't have to do shit like that anymore. And second of all, he's inspired Tony Jaa, he's inspired all these other guys. So
many generations, not even the next generation, but many generations, and that's the amazing thing about him, for example.
And the interesting thing is, even after, say, they've even forgotten Jackie Chan, which 2,000 years or 1,000 years, who knows if they'll remember. But the fact that he inspired so many people after him will still exist within that continuum. 100%. So that's why he's so important. So I like to remember the Jackie Chan from the 80s and 90s. I'm personally not into his modern films. I'm sorry to say, I don't know if that's blasphemy. It's just true. I'm not.
Yeah, it's a totally different ballgame. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what he did back then, man, like, credit where credit's due. He did more than enough. So
incredible.
And same goes.
You actually just said in what you were saying there, he doesn't need to be doing what he's doing today.
No. I mean, he can. I mean, I'm sure it's addictive. You like to be creative.
That's true.
There's stories of him walking on set. Oh, that's a nice film. I'll just take over. You know what I'm saying? Like,
just because I can.
Yeah.
Well, so, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I've asked a number of people this, is what do you think the state of Hong Kong or Chinese cinema is today in comparison to all these movies we're pretty much drooling over from, the 80s and 90s?
Not good. Like I think that I don't. So it's kind of hard to say right now because obviously in the pandemic, cinema globally did not do too well. I think it can be answered. I like to answer my questions in two parts, so I hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
So firstly, right now it is obviously not as fruitful as it was before. This is just a fact. The sheer numbers of producing 400 films a year versus the very few we got in the last few years is one thing. But I have seen two things that are encouraging. Well, first of all, maybe three. First of all, there are murmurings of more films being shot this year than have been shot in the last few years. So, or at least next year, I should say. In 2024, we're going to see more films. We're going to see more interest in producing Hong Kong style productions. I hope that we'll start seeing, subsidiaries or tax incentives or whatever you want to say, put in place so that Hong Kong films can be made, more easily. That'd be a really good thing.
Of course.
I think my personal theory is that Hong Kong had a missing creative generation. So people who are, say, in their late 30s, early 40s right now weren't as creative in Hong Kong.
Sure.
But there are filmmakers in there. There's perfectly valid filmmakers. There just wasn't a lot of them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's partially to blame on the generation 80s and 90s not fostering enough talent to come through.
Sure. Yeah.
But there is a current group of people in their 20s, maybe in their late teens and stuff like that right now. And you're seeing, especially in the fashion and the music world, they're producing some really great stuff. Like creatively, there's a bit of a burst happening.
Yeah.
So all film is all the arts combined, right? So photography, music, design, fashion, everything else. And I think for an industry to really be reborn, which is what Hong Kong needs, it needs a platform, which I guess would be the digital services like Netflix or whatever else.
Sure.
So those companies have to come into play. And I think we're going to start seeing more streaming networks. So hopefully they'll come into pass for a more international audience as well. And I think now that we're seeing that with the younger generations, them all kind of doing those things, eventually creatives will rise, which will combine all that together. You're going to need producer types and director types. You're going to need those two things.
Yeah. Exactly.
And some help from the previous generations. So when you ask me what is the state of Hong Kong cinema right now, it's not good. I'm not going to lie. Is there hope for the future? Potentially, yeah. I can't say for sure, but I'm seeing a lot of artistic things happening. There's things happening, for example, on the music scene. There are block parties happening again in Hong Kong. Near the freaking fruit markets in Yau Ma Tei, the Yau Ma Tei fruit market, which is in movies like Knockoff with Jean-Claude Van Damme. They're doing block parties that were playing like, especially jungle on the streets, like the genre of music on the streets in Hong Kong, and it looks mad.
Wow.
They're playing techno jungle and everything else. But because that happened, they're creative people starting to gather around that are in fashion and stuff. So these people are starting to intermingle, and there's a lot of photography happening in Hong Kong right now. So
we could almost start to see basically what happened in the 70s with the likes of Choi Hark and An Hoi.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was my next point.
Yeah, good.
So we're starting to see a creative thing coming forward, and if I could be so, I still could think film is the amalgamation of that. So you need that to happen first, and eventually people will make movies.
Sure.
So, but in order for people to make movies, the financing is to come in there, and the interesting about people, because Jackie Chan does not have this, for example, but Choi Hark is unique, where he could bring in money, he could speak to the money people, and he was a creative himself. He kind of was a interesting, like, you know, or Leonard Ho was like that as well. I mean, like it's for example, stuff like that. So I think when those people come into the mix and go, let's take a chance, let's make some good stuff, and of course, let's make our money back and not be ridiculously stupid with our budgets and stuff, and keep them low and not ask for billions of dollars to make a movie. That's when things will get interesting. But I'm hearing beeps of those kind of people starting up now as well.
Good.
So, and that's all response, and you can say why that's happening. There's certain cultural responses that are responsible for that. But yeah, so from the streets of Hong Kong, from someone who hangs out with a lot of artists and musicians, photographers, and everything else, something is boiling and something is brewing, and it looks pretty good.
I would hate the thing. I would hate to see it just fizzle out and be forgotten about, you know, and then it's focuses on mainland Chinese cinema, which is quite a different take altogether on filmmaking. Hong Kong still has that. Hong Kong is the reason I fell in love with Asian cinema, and it needs to find a way back. I know we're not going to get what we had back, but it needs to find its footing.
But you know what? It's okay that we don't get what we had back, because that's done, and a new generation has to speak for himself.
Absolutely.
Look, if Hong Kongers in the 80s were doing the stuff they were doing in 1945, it wouldn't be as interesting. So, you know,
I also find, like, in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s, a lot of producers and directors, Johnny To, Ringo Lam, Choi Hark, for example, they all, and John Woo, they all had protégés under them. They all had these people, and John Woo himself, for example, was a protégé of Chang Cheh and so on.
So was Godfrey Ho.
Godfrey Ho, exactly, and Shaw Brothers. So we see this, we see the climb there. It seems almost like today there's a lack of that kind of.
Well, that's what I said earlier. I think that a certain generation dropped the ball, and then and very few filmmakers, unlike Godfrey Ho, wanted to go and teach skills and teach next generations.
Yeah.
So, like, if more people had done what, say, Godfrey done, and be like, let's do this, let's teach them, whether it'll be in a class or on sets or everything else, I think we'd be better. So, I
think you're right.
Yeah, there is aspects of that, and and Hong Kong cinema was a very unique thing. I mean, something I'd like to point out, especially with the Mr. Vampire films, and they're a very good, interesting point to look at this. Hong Kong cinema was an amalgamation of, you know, there's Asian aspects to it as well, the British aspects to it as well. There's a reason that bats, for example, which are seen as like, you know, non-threatening entities in mainland China, were seen as scary in Hong Kong because Samuel was watching Hammer horror films, and stuff like that. So, and he grew up with Chinese lore, which is what the Mr. Vampire, the Guangxi, were based on. You know, he read, he got those stories told him by his mother, but then at the same time, he was listening to British lore, and there's an international mix of that. And that's possible still today because of the existence of the internet. But something else that I don't think people, I've never really spoken about before, which is this, is as of recent, people in Hong Kong have noticed what Mike and myself are doing in terms of, like, these old films are coming back and stuff like that. And then, like, younger people, and the people who are younger are like, oh, it's really fucking cool that you're doing that. Oh yeah, because they are starting to discover these films as well. And then I think they're more drawn to, like, less to Johnny To and stuff like that, which is awesome, because Johnny To is my favorite Hong Kong filmmaker, I'd say, along with Herman Yao. But
I love Herman stuff. In fact, I just watched Taxi Hunter today for the first time ever. It's a movie I've never been able to get my hands on, and of course it is released it there, and I watched it for the first time. Didn't shock me as much as I had, I guess, hoped or thought.
Well, it's not a Category 3 film.
It's not really, no.
Yeah.
But it was still very entertaining. Very entertaining.
it's a great film, especially the end. The finale is shot masterfully. That whole
Yeah.
end bit and everything else, and of course, it's got elements of like the mirror scene and everything else. And
Yeah.
but like it's a great film, but that is a very real exploitation film. And the fact that at the time the taxi drivers, sorry, in Hong Kong were being so obnoxious. It's kind of coming back now and again, but the taxi drivers being so obnoxious, people had enough of it. So a film like Taxi Hunter, the audiences were like, bring it back. Bring it back.
I'm sure the taxi drivers were pleased, eh?
I know I have some taxi driver stories here, man. Like
I'm sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's part of that Herman Yeo Anthony Wong trilogy, I mean,
they're a wonderful team up. They are
Ebola Syndrome and everything else. Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese of Hong Kong in a weird way, just grindhouse and dirtier.
Absolutely, it was great to see finally after all these years. I mean, it's been decades, obviously, since it's been out, but I have to say, Ebola Syndrome still sits as my favorite Cat 3 movie.
Well, so here's the fun thing, on my opinion. So I think Untold Stories genuinely build a shock. I think Taxi Hunter is created to like explore like the rages of Hong Kong. I think Ebola Syndrome is actually just a black comedy, and
it's just
them going, how far can we get with this? Because how much fun would that have made?
I mean, like, imagine making friends for the first time just to see their reaction.
There's actually a really fun story about that. Anthony Wong at one point found out because Anthony Wong's father unfortunately abandoned the family when he was young, and there's a whole story in Hong Kong, like that he found brothers that father had with another woman, and he met them, and they're these white Australian guys, because he's obviously his father is from, I think, from England, and moved to Australia, had these other kids, and those kids found out, holy hell, like our unknown half brother is this really famous celebrity. Anthony Wong flew down. There's a great shot of him meeting them. He's like, oh, here's some of my movies, and on the top of the movies that he gave them to introduce himself is freaking Ebola Syndrome. Imagine going, oh, I want to see what my guy is. My freaking half brother's mental. But like, it's so good. I remember seeing that, and no one else noticed it. But I looked at the photo, I wonder what movie this kid, and go, you gave him Ebola Syndrome? That's the movie. You didn't go with Verbal Affairs?
Maybe he didn't want to see him again,
No buffer, just straight into it. Here, this is it.
That's what I love about Anthony, and I love watching him in interviews, because he's a man of very few words, but when he has something to say, he doesn't hold back.
Doesn't. So I was supposed to have met him like 2 or 3 times, and every time somehow I've met Sam Lee, I met all those guys. Anthony Wong is the one guy everybody's like, oh, you should meet Anthony Wong. You guys get on because he loves music and everything else. And they go, yeah, you guys will get on. And I've never met him. And it's bizarre. Like, I'm supposed to meet him 3 times, and every time something happened, and I was like, oh, okay. But hopefully I'll get to meet him sometime soon, because I'm sure there's reason. We have so much stuff coming that we're shooting. Like,
excellent. Well, that's good.
I think we're booked to shoot till like January next year with different stuff.
Hell.
So
wow.
Yeah. So, and he's on the list somewhere in there. That's
just crazy. I mean, I hope you get that chance. I think he is a fascinating man overall. I think it would be wonderful to be able to share.
Yeah, I love his attitude, and he's a genuine creative guy. So, from what I gather, from what I hear,
that's the thing. He seems it. Both him and Francis, they have that. There's just something about them. About when you see them in interviews, they seem genuine.
Yes, those they both beat with their own drum. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I'm sure they're great actors to have on set. But I imagine for both those guys, if you don't have a director who knows what he's doing, it's like, ooh, you're gonna have keep those guys under time. They both strike me as people. If they like you, they like you. If they don't like you, they'll let it be known.
They're in trouble.
So, yeah. I mean, there are those kind of characters. So
very good. So the other thing I wanted to speak to you was about, and I asked again, when people ask me this, I find it to be one of the hardest questions ever. I could almost probably answer the meaning of life quicker than I could this. Your top 5 favorite Hong Kong movies. Would you have any, or is it just too?
Top 5 favorite Hong Kong movies. I'd have to go. Wow, that's
the tricky one.
The Underground Banker is in there.
Oh,
I love The Underground Banker because it's, in terms of category 3 films, I can't believe someone made that movie.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
have you ever seen that movie?
Yes, a long time ago. Yeah.
It's in there because I just can't believe anybody made that movie. Beast Cops is 100% in there. I love Beast Cops.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I love PTU. I think PTU is
The
a
gorgeous
fantastic.
movie.
Yeah, I love for the cinematography and everything else. I also really like Throwdown as well because
Yeah.
I practiced judo for many years. And right before becoming a brown belt, I discovered football, aka soccer.
Yeah.
And I went to do that instead.
Yeah.
But I have a deep appreciation of judo, and I did it for I think 7 years. So
Yeah.
I didn't do the fast tracks there.
Throwdown is
So,
a beautiful movie.
Yeah, but Throwdown's a beautiful film. I'm just going through it in my head because we've gone through so many of them.
I know,
that
right?
It's kind of mental. I mean, Throwdown, the I'd like to say Master Flying Guillotine, but I consider that more a Taiwanese film than a Hong Kong film, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
It's my first film.
Very true. Yeah.
So it's a first film. It's my first film such as Taiwanese company.
Crazy film.
Let me think. Johnny To. I'm just gonna go through directors in my head because that's better. That's a lot easier.
Johnny
So I've got basically
quite clearly one of your favorites, right?
Well, yeah, Johnny. I mean, like, look, PTU, Throwdown.
What do you Running on Karma? That's a huge favorite of mine.
I like Running on Karma, but I prefer it because I can't go Johnny To all the way, so I'm gonna have to go. Like I'm just because I could literally mention a bunch of Johnny To films. You know, we'd be sitting here. I could go on but Johnny To for quite a while.
Absolutely.
Let's think. Jesus, that's a hard question because I have all these movies going through my head, and
it's hard to pinpoint. I don't honestly think I could come up with my top 20 if I'm honest. It would be so hard.
Top 20 would be easier. Oh man. Okay, Fallen Angels is definitely in there.
Oh right, yeah, wow.
Because Fallen Angels, yeah, because it's my because I was debating in my mind between Fallen Angels and In the Mood for Love, but I think Fallen Angels because Fallen Angels such a Hong Kong film.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Troublesome Night 5.
Yes, you do love your Troublesome Nights, don't you?
Troublesome Night 5. I think it's great. So there you go. There's 5 of my favorite films, but those are always ever shifting and ever changing. So, but my favorite film of all time is Akira.
Akira, really? Sorry, I keep moving because there's things going on. Sorry.
Don't worry. It makes the interview more interesting. We're on the go. I have the most interesting interview on your channel now.
It's like your top 5. It's ever shifting.
Yeah. So there you go. So I mean,
the Troublesome Night series is an interesting one because it just seems to never stop, right?
Well, there are 19 of them, and then they made one more after that. The name escapes me right now. But like whether or not that's official part of it, that's a whole talk. At one point before the pandemic happened, Mike and I were trying to reboot it. And we got pretty close, and then the pandemic happened, and the money was pulled away from under it. But it's something I would love to do because my concept for it was to have because we kind of know the people who kind of have some rights for it, whatever. Yeah, and then we were like, well, why don't we get 3 young Hong Kong filmmakers and each give them a shot, but have an older filmmaker and make sure they're there to kind of oversee it. So, for example,
an incredible project, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd written out the entire all 3 films as well as scripted it, everything else, and people were kind of on board. And it would have taken the Troublesome Night series and kept the Hong Kong-esque of them because I've said this before, and I'll just keep it very brief. I find them the most Hong Kong films because they're shot in such like real locations here.
Yeah.
And it includes so much of the perception of it. So our ideas would make it a little bit darker for this age, but still keep that flavor that those films
that would be pretty cool. I think a modern reboot as such would be a great idea. Absolutely. And especially
and then make it a ground for in which young filmmakers get their shot and get in the cinema. And
absolutely
by getting people in the cinema, you open a lot of doors for them because that helps them get subsidies and whatever else.
Well, that's like what I do with my film festival. It's been running 14 years, and
that
was the intention, was to give these new filmmakers a whole new start, a gateway into this world of independence. So it's been a joy doing that, I have to say.
Yeah, Mike told me he went to your film festival as well. Like,
He's been over a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah. So that it's
the last one we named our best performance award after him.
Oh, really? The Mike Leader Award.
So now we have the Mike Leader Award, yeah.
the big Mike Award. Well, we once got pulled. I don't know if you ever heard the story. We got pulled into a reality TV show once, a French reality TV show here in Hong Kong.
Right. Okay.
Have you heard that story?
No,
what happened was we arrived
it.
there, and they go, "Who are you guys?" And it was myself, Mike Leader, and Mike Chan. And they go, "Oh, we need some Hong Kongers on this thing." And obviously, you guys kind of know. We're like, we get asked to do stuff every now and again. And then we got pulled into this thing. We're like, okay, fine, we'll do it, and they'll pay us some money, and we'll show up, and we'll pretend to be part of reality. And the concept was we were there, and then we were supposed to meet this French crew, and they were trying to be actors, and we had to judge their acting and everything else. We get there, go, we've changed the idea. We go, oh, what's this? He goes, Mike Leader is like this casting agent. You go, yeah. And he goes, and you and Mike Chan have never met him before. You don't know each other. You're just coming in as wild actors. I go, yeah, but you do realize if you type in either of our names, like, and this is what proper the biggest reality TV show in France. You go, you realize you type in Arne Venema or Mike Leader, the chances are the other guy's name's going to come up there. And Mike Chan over here has both worked with Mike Leader and was the best man at my wedding. No, you guys don't know each other. No one will realize it. Okay. So first of all, I was like, well, and I was like, we should call Mike Leader the Big Mike. That's what you should do first of all. They're like, oh, that's really funny. I think eventually they did it too. And then what happened was there's a guy who works in CFK called Joe Farello, who's a bit of a cult figure here. He was on my radio show recently, and he told a story that was so fucking mental. People were like, that's no way that's true. That's how crazy like his stories get. Like, he's an amazing character. And then we decided to mess with this show. And me and Mike Chan started talking to, and Mike Leader was there, was like, the agent. I go, okay, everybody, we tell these French actors, these wannabe actors, are part of this like reality TV show, they have to study the Fiorello method invented by Joe Farello. And then we're like, okay, let's do it. So basically these guys came up there, and they were like, and Mike Leader's like, yes, your acting is okay. They have to do a scene. I had to do a scene as well. And I hammed it up like crazy, like Battlefield Earth, John Travolta style. I was like, you have to understand that this, like, I just did like and Mike says, that's good acting. We're just having it up like hell. And then they go, you have to, and then we both turn the guy, you have to study the Fiorello method. The guy's like, Fiorello method. And Mike Leader goes, the Fiorello method. You have to, and they're like, okay, I'll study the Fiorello method. And we got so far in the recording, at one point someone must have realized that we were bullshitting them, because at the last minute, like right before it says they cut the thing, but we were like, damn it, we wanted to get the Fiorello method in there. But then it starts spreading around Hong Kong, and then we were in a situation with an actor from LA. And then someone brought the Fiorello method, and this actor from LA goes, oh yeah, it's the Fiorello method. I've done it. We're like, what? I go, you did it with Joe Farello. And he goes, yeah, where? In Los Angeles. He goes, yeah, I've been up a few times. We're like, holy hell, the bullshit's managed to get down to LA because it somehow spread around. And we're like, right, the Fiorello method. Fantastic. Yeah, of course. We're looking at each other like, this is insane. So yeah.
So it's not all just commentaries. There's other antics that go on between the lot of you.
We obviously hang out, and there's, I think in the next few, I cannot say anything, but in the next few months, you might see other stuff that we've been involved in as well, beyond like the Blu-ray stuff. But that's all I can say.
Good.
So
okay.
It's yeah.
It's nice to build on that. The commentaries are wonderful, and it's great to have that chance to talk about stuff you love. But to be able to go out to the side and do something else and to create.
Yeah, and I also have my radio show here as well, the CFK show, which we do. And then Mike sometimes comes on, and he's helped us occasionally get guests, and he's been on the show himself. And we've gotten people that Mike has cast, like Philip Joly was on the last one as well.
Yes.
And Semi as well. We got him on there. We got Joe. And then, Philip came on there, who made Hong Kong films. That was great, because our show is in English, which is kind of refreshing.
I'd love to get Philip on. Yeah, I think he's a wonderful and
he's the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And we spoke about him about like Nintendo Switch games and stuff like that, because we're like, hey man, let's just talk about that. He was like, yeah, cool. It was really fun, and we went overtime, but the station just was like,
whatever.
He's
a great guy.
Too good.
Seems like another genuine guy. Yeah.
A cool dude, and he hasn't let the entertainment industry. He's just a nice guy.
I just think he kind of should have been a bit bigger by now. I think there's something.
Well, I think we're going to see some really good stuff from him soon. That's what I can say.
Can't say anything. No pressure.
No. But he's Philip is put in a performance in a movie that he's done a film now. It's gonna be super good. He promised he'd come back on my radio show to talk about it a bit more as well. But Philip's a good guy, and I think we're gonna see a lot more from him, and it's gonna be really good. So
very good. Good. And do you find then that, I don't know as much today, but Mike used to talk about, say, a decade or two ago, the amount of Hong Kong stars that would just walk the streets or be on the subway, or would you find that?
Oh yeah,
they all
in terms of like Hong Kong actors going in public or whatever, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Like years ago, I had a really weird incident where I was in an area called Mong Kok, which is a shopping district around. This is pre-pandemic stuff, and I was running around the corner, and then I came around the corner, and I was like with a hot dog or something like that, and it looks like a hot dog stand thing. I turn around the corner thing, I ran by someone. I look at him, I go, Vincent Koch, and he goes, I go, oh. Hi. I was like, okay, cool. I was in a hurry. I was like, oh, nice. Yeah, and I had to keep on going. But yeah, you just had a hot dog stand eating a hot dog. And I one point talking about Joe Farrello again and the CFK crew and stuff. We were at Hong Kong Film Mart once, and we were at a bar after this at Hong Kong Film Mart, and we're sitting there and we're just talking about movies and everything else. And all of a sudden, like we're just talking about movies because we love talking about movies because when we hang out, so it's myself, Joe Farrello, and Mike Chan, I believe. And all of a sudden, bang! This huge bottle of wine goes between us and goes, no, we have to discuss this because this is the best way to do it. We look up and lo and behold, it is the majestic Christopher Doyle, Wong cinematographer.
What?
You can drink like a fish. And he sat down there.
Sober, yeah.
And he sat down there and we proceeded to talk about movies and everything else and art and stuff like that. He just talked to us for the longest time. And
wow.
We can all hold our drink.
He's Australian, right?
He's Australian, but he's lived in he went to Taiwan initially, and he's lived in Hong Kong and everything else. But he's been around it for so long. He's really, really integrated. Speaks perfect like Chinese, Mandarin. He speaks.
And so he's still based there in Hong Kong, yeah?
I think he travels all over the place, but he told us some crazy, wild stories. And at the end of the night, yeah, he was so good, and he doesn't like talk about his own movies. And then at one point, we're talking about Lost in Translation, which apparently wasn't a very big fan of because it kind of copied the style of it. But at one point, like, I just was sitting there, can I ask you a question? He goes, yeah. When you were doing Fallen Angels, because I mentioned I'm a big fan of when you were doing Fallen Angels, there's some beer cans. Oh, those are mine. I was like, really? Yeah. We were there so frustrated shooting another film that basically, like, they just went off and made that film very quickly. And he was like drinking and everything else, the cans in the frame, but just shot super wide angle, everything else. And I asked them what the locations were and what their thinking was behind it. And they just were like, let's just go. Let's just shoot awesome, fun stuff and absorb the night of Hong Kong. Yeah. And they had a semblance of the story, but they shot it fairly quickly. And he said he had a ball doing that film, apparently.
Excellent. So, he sounds like a very interesting guy. I've heard a few different reports about him as a person, not liking his work.
I think it's the way you approach him. Like, he liked soul, but at the end of the night, for some reason, he got up again with Joe Farrelly. Goes, this man here is a genius. I was like, okay. And after that, I ran around with him, and he started, because we're both big fans of street. If you look at my Instagram, there's a lot of street art, and he was like, let's check out the street. So I ended up me and Chris Doyle walking around looking at different street art and everything else. He's like, and then like we ended up going back to the bar and hang out. And he was a really, really nice guy, but someone who really loves art and culture. And he is someone who definitely like is willing to work with younger generations as well, like on lower budget stuff, because he shoots a lot of short things with people as well. He has a huge budget stuff. He's telling me he got asked to do Harry Potter at some point, and he turned it down because it take up too much time. And he'd rather do more creative stuff. But he was among the top like few people I met that were super interesting to me. Excellent. So and I think it's how you approach them.
And I think those natural kind of meetings are, rather than sort of setting something up formal, give you more of the real person when you bump into.
Oh yeah. But I mean, the point of the story is that the original reason I told the story is like it was super clear that he just loved movies. Yeah. Like, because the fact that he was like, this is too good of a conversation, bang, a bottle down here, which he paid for, by the way. And he goes, let's just sit down and talk about movies. And I think sometimes that's what you want to do. When we interviewed Choi Hark for Eureka at one point, the kind of message we got was like, well, it could be 20 minutes. If he likes to, it'll be like, it'll be half an hour. We ended up speaking to him for an hour and a half because we just opened that conversation. Like, so Choi, he goes, yeah, we were talking about. I was like, which comic books do you like? And he went, what? And then like, and
He's a
he just
huge
started
comic
talking
book
about.
fan. That's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he started talking about comic books and he tells all these really great fun stories, and we have all this stuff on archive, like
Yeah.
4K resolution and stuff.
I adore him as a director. I think he's just incredible.
Yeah.
Not everything's perfect, but his imagination and his.
Oh, he's wild. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's just something else. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. He told me that like when they first got digital cameras, he's working at some films, TV studio, I think it was, and they were shooting stuff with cameras. And when he first got them, he goes, guys, these cameras are really expensive. We only have 5 of them. I want you to be super careful with them. Don't you drop them. Don't you break them. Super careful. And I go, what happened? He goes, oh, by the end of the month, I broke them all by myself. Like he just wrecked them all, doing crazy fun stuff. It was really fun. But I got to admit, there's one point we're setting up the shots because I'm in front of Choi Hark. I'm lining up 2 cameras, and I've done it. I think I've shot over 100 interviews as well. But for a second, I was like, oh, you can just move over there, and I'm like, tell Choi Hark where to move in front of my camera. This is a weird thing. And at one point, like I was like setting this thing up, and he taking off his sunglasses. And on the chair, I go, oh, can we move your sunglasses? He goes, where they? I go, I picked up his sunglasses and moved. I put them down. I go, holy shit! I just picked up Choi Hark's sunglasses. Like, I hope he's okay with that. Like, he's like, oh, okay.
The guy is a legend, and it's wonderful that he's still making movies today. One movie I would love to see of his come out on Blu-ray and get restored is Wicked City.
God, so I have a story about Wicked City.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I love that'd also be my top 5 if I. You just remind me of Wicked City. I fucking love Wicked City. I mean, there are 2 cinematographers on that lighting that bastard because as you can imagine, the lighting is like it reflects the manga, but the film is closer related to the book.
Yes.
And I asked Choi Harko Choi, because the guy who directed it, I think is not Peter. I can't remember who directed it. I go, that guy's not done anything else. I go, hey Choi, can I ask you a question? He goes, yeah, man. He goes, because this point we got more company. Go, did you direct Wicked City? And he goes, because he's a producer on it, but
yeah,
obviously. And he goes, sometimes as a producer, I get very involved. That was his response. like you directed that movie.
You can see his flair. You can see his touch when you watch that movie.
Because you know what, I think in a non-malicious way, Choi Hark is delightfully mischievous as well, and that's what makes his films so good. Because to have the guts, even in films like Knock Off or Time and Tide, to have the guts to move your camera, even though they're motion controlled cameras, but to do the things, go through walls, and you need a little bit of a bad boy, like, because the rules state, keep things organized, get your mask. Well, they don't really do mask shots, but he's like, yeah, these are the rules. I'm gonna make stuff look really cool. Yeah. He's thankfully put himself in a position where he doesn't do it. But Wicked City, oh, what a great movie that! I love Wicked City. I'm glad you mentioned that one.
That you get that on the list and try and get one of these labels to push for that, please.
Well, I have tried. So every now and again we send a list, but the Blu-ray is out in Hong Kong, and there is a really decent scan of it. So the colors are not 100%, but with labels like Eureka, whatever, they could color correct that. No problem. They could definitely sort that. But there is a good scan of it in Hong Kong on Blu-ray already, so that exists. So the possibility is certainly there.
That would be fantastic. Arne, listen, I am going to have to wrap things up, unfortunately.
Sure.
I would love to get you back for a second piece because I think
no problem,
a lot more we could certainly talk about.
Well, if you like, you can get on the entire CFK crew because there's like 6 of us. And like it'll be anarchy, but it'll be fun because the stories will get out of that.
But I'm sure we could we could still make an interesting episode out of it. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and finally, great to meet you after all this time.
No problem, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for running a channel that keeps it alive. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So thank you once again for watching another video here on Invincible Asia. Don't forget you can check out hundreds of others here on the channel. You can also show your continued support by heading over to my new merch store or by checking out invincibleasia.com where you can read my full movie reviews and follow me on Instagram @InvincibleAsia. Until next time though, enjoy your Kung Fu and I will see you soon.